It was a clear evening on December 15th. The time was 9:17 PM and Lies of P had just finished downloading. I went over the game on my PS5 menu and was left listening to the piano soundtrack for 10 minutes straight. Anyways, when I stopped crying, I launched the game and was left listening to the main menu piano soundtrack, which is the same as the PS5 menu one, for again about 10 minutes. Maybe a bit less now that I'm thinking about it. While I was listening to the piano song, I was just watching these three words: press any button. An hour earlier, I was playing Elden Ring, until Lies of P downloaded. Did I really want to dive down into this game? A new game? Did I want to spend 20 or 30 hours uncovering the story and fighting the bosses and exploring the world? Well, I mean, to be fair, I did pay $60 and... yeah, well, I pressed X and the answer was clear in my head. Before we begin, I need to say something. This game is phenomenal. Every single second spent through my first playthrough of this game was filled with me thinking, even hoping at some points, that this game must get bugged. And excluding a section 10 minutes long, this game is so pristine and just so shiny that I seriously struggle to believe that this video is going to be a critique. Because it's not gonna be a critique, it's a praising video. Playing this game, even while being spoiled, is still an amazing experience, but in order for all of you to live through the absolute 10 out of 10 this game has to offer, I suggest you don't continue watching this video until you've played at least 2 of the 3 endings available. With all that out of the way, let's begin. For this video, and contrary to my regular formula, I have a script. I want to dump all of the criticism I have for the game from the get-go, so that I can shower it with praise for the rest of the video. My main problem with the game is its world building. Don't take this the wrong way, I don't mean that the world isn't interesting. Actually, the exact opposite. It's filled to the brim with details scattered around its many levels. Unfortunately, it's these levels that I have a problem with. You see, a Souls-like game usually has interconnecting levels and side levels that synergize well with each other. Lies of P doesn't have this type of level design. Unfortunately, this struck me harder than I'd like to admit, because I replayed Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3 right before I played Lies of P. To change from the complex and non-linear level design of these games to the sometimes complex but always linear design of Lies of P was hard-hitting, especially on the last levels of the game. It's obvious that most of the game's funding and time went into these last levels, by the way. You can see it from the start, these levels are amazing, and their bosses are the best fights I've had in the series. The variety of the enemy roster hits an all-time high too, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The problem with the game's areas is that they're way too linear. Even levels that are mazes, like the arcade, fall into this pit of linearity. While other Souls-likes have sprawling levels, Lies of P has a square, and then a checkpoint, and then a square, and a checkpoint, and a square, and a checkpoint, and a square, and a checkpoint, and so on, so on. The right way to progress through the levels is always clear, and while they do have shortcuts, they always fall short. No pun intended. They just feel like fan service because the game had to be a Souls-like. And that's it. That's the only bad thing I can think of for this game. Before I go onto the praising, please, I'm going to say this for the second time. If you haven't played this game, and you wanna play this game, please, trust me on this. This game is absolutely phenomenal. Go and buy it. You will not regret it. I think it's on sale right now. It's like 20 bucks. Just go and buy it. It's fucking amazing. Just don't get it for the PC version because I think it still has the Denuvo, but still. Now that we have that out of the way, it's time to praise the shit out of it. Let's begin with the combat system, because in a Souls-like game, the combat is one of the most important things. Lies of P has a lot of stuff going for it, but none of them reach the heights of the combat system. While playing Lies of P, all I wanted to do was fight, boss after boss. To be honest, even if the game had zero story and zero level design and zero everything, if it was just a boss rush with items and rewards, I would still love the shit out of it. There are no words to describe the amazingness of the combat system, and while it has received some criticism for the parry timings or the difficulty, skill issue, get good pilot, I mean, come on, not every game can be easy, okay? Every single feature of that combat system synergizes so well with one another that it's just... it's like a symphony. Okay, let me list a few of these mechanics, and call me crazy if you like. You have healing cells, Estus flasks. Once these cells are depleted completely, you can hit an enemy to regain a lost cell back. This only goes up to one cell, so you're kind of forced to switch between hope and despair and either be able to pull off victory after a long and hard fight, or die trying, like I did many times. Your weapon has a durability meter that slowly depletes as you block, parry and attack. You need to periodically repair your weapon because if it breaks, it will deal less damage to the enemy while also bouncing off their body and preventing you from getting in more than one attack. The weapons are separated into blades and handles. You can disassemble these weapons and put a hammerhead on a stabbing hilt or a knife blade on a spear handle. The variety has no ends in here. There are also damage types that prevent you from dealing the maximum damage of a weapon if their damage types don't meet up. For example, stabbing with a hammerhead would obviously deal less damage than striking with it, I guess. But, and here is where the game shines, by the way. Even though there are damage reductions, the game still lets you experiment with every blade and handle, even if they're not compatible, because in Lies of P, it's not about stats and points and whatnot. It's all about having fun and actually wanting to engage with it with the combat system. That's also why I believe that the repair tool is not a tedious mechanic to have. It has received some criticism that having durability actually impact the fight in real time is, well, dogshit, but I disagree. Bear with me here. Since you're able to tinker around your weapons like a blacksmith, it's also logical that you need to do routine maintenance on your weapons so that they don't break. But breaking weapons is all you're going to want to do, since if you parry an enemy enough times, you can break their weapon and make the fight easier. That also goes for bosses, which makes the fight easier. All of the bosses besides one. Now that we've talked about the complexity of the player's combat system, let's also talk about the enemies. Enemies and bosses in this game have two types of attacks. Normal ones and undodgeable ones. These ones are called fury attacks, and I've just made a mistake. The same mistake the game makes, that may desensitize players from dodging. Before I continue, please, a bit of a parenthesis, by the way this is not scripted. Special thanks to Joseph Anderson for pointing this out in his video, because I would have never noticed it if it wasn't for him. End parenthesis. You see, when the game teaches you about fury attacks, it says that they're undodgeable, which is only partially true. The actual wording is that you can't use iframes to dodge through them, like any other normal attack. But you can still dodge out of the way or outside of the radius of the attack and not take any damage. This is, in my opinion, the biggest reason players see parrying as the only way to fight bosses, when it clearly isn't. I mean, I personally haven't done a run in which I only use dodging, but in my normal run, when I did have to use it, it felt just as satisfying to use as any other Souls-like. Anyways, remember the repair tool? You can actually bind special grindstones into it to temporarily buff your weapon with a specific element that your boss is weak to. We haven't even reached the upgrade tree, and I'm already kind of embarrassed for praising the game so much. I mean, I know I'm right because the game is phenomenal, but yeah, actually I'm even more embarrassed now that I'm reading the script and saying it, because it's time to talk about the upgrade system. Okay, so before all of you click off the video, the upgrade system is called the P organ. I've tried to put this off for as long as I can, but it's a vital part of the game. Trust me, I need to talk about it. Okay, the P organ is a stupidly bad name for the upgrade system. I know. In the world, you'll come across a material called quartz. Using this material will help you upgrade yourself tremendously over smaller upgrades. Let me explain. Every upgrade in the tree is tied to using quartz, as I've said. What I haven't said is that every upgrade has 2, 3, or 4 mini upgrades that are all required to unlock the big one. Don't let the names fool you though, because these mini upgrades are actually strong, like you get an extra healing flask, you get more ergo from killing enemies, it increases your attack damage, and the big boy upgrades are game changing, as in you can have a second legion arm or dodge fury attacks. This upgrade system is amazing. It encourages you to find every single thing to be found in a level. It encourages exploration and actually makes you engage with the world building of the game, unconventional and subpar as it is. The one thing that soured me while playing Elden Ring was its lack of variety. Sure, it has many spells, swords, spells, shields, spells, weapon arts, also known as spells, talismans, spells, incantations, also known as spells, and of course, how could I, a seasoned player, forget about the spells? This isn't a rant on Elden Ring or something, I've saved that for another video, but it just goes to show how low the variety in that game is. Don't take this the wrong way, yeah, Elden Ring has a big map and, okay, yeah, I get it, but Elden Ring takes about 110 to 120 hours to completely explore through, while Lies of P only takes 20 to 30. Yet, in those 20 to 30 hours, and that small world compared to Elden Ring, Lies of P manages to blow it off the water with extreme variety in both items and enemies. Even though it may sound petty, I need to state this. It already does pretty well on variety due to the experimentation presented by the different blades and handles. There's really no end to your creativity, okay? The sky's the limit here. But besides these, Lies of P offers many Legion arms, this game's take on the Shinobi prosthetic. Quartz to upgrade your character, as I've already stated, almost always unique bosses and almost always new enemies, depending on the level obviously, so that it doesn't feel like you're fighting the same enemy over and over and over again, and many more things like boss weapons and records. A perfect example of enemy variety would be the basic roster. In the world of Lies of P, there are puppets and carcasses. Pretty simple. Both of them have unique and fitting movesets. Among these basic enemies, there are also elite mini-bosses that are hard to fight your first time through, my controller knows all about this, all with their own separate moveset. For example, puppets in the world are broken, so it makes sense for them to move in uncanny and jittery ways, snapping their limbs or contorting their bodies or shit like that, you know, shit a machine would do. Carcasses, on the other hand, are humans. They can't really move in such a way, but they can use their overwhelming strength provided by their new bodies to hit you as hard as they can. There's already enough variety to be found by now, but Lies of P goes beyond that. The true cherry on top starts rearing its beautifully magnificent head when carcasses begin to possess the puppets, mixing their movesets into one hard-hitting and hard-to-telegraph enemy. That's good enough with the regular enemies and mini-bosses, but again, Lies of P doesn't only go beyond, it goes beyond plus ultra and has two boss fights with carcass-possessed puppets. The rematch against the tutorial boss and the rematch against the Scrapped Watchman, the latter of which hit me harder than any other boss I fought, especially considering that it's a reused one. Let me set the stage. Imagine this, you've just fought a legendary puppet, the king of all puppets. After that, you go into a swamp and encounter many puppets that seem to be possessed by carcasses. Lies of P has a tendency to throw mini versions of the big boss of the area against you so that you know how to defeat it more easily if you put in the time and actually engage with the enemy roster. So, by that logic, the boss of this area should be a carcass possessing a puppet. And it both is and isn't, in the most magnificent way. The boss of this area, the green monster of the swamp, begins with you fighting an ordinary carcass. You may notice while in the fight, if you're not busy getting your ass kicked, like me the first 20 times I fought this shit, that there is the body of the Scrapped Watchman, a boss you fought previously, in the arena with you. But, just like I did, I imagine many players thought it was just decoration. It isn't until you defeat the boss that it becomes abundantly clear that the body was not a decoration, but rather the second fucking phase. The monster possesses the body of the Watchman, and one of the most legendary fights in the whole game begins. The second phase has both the moveset of the Watchman, which you're already familiar with, and the monster, which you should be familiar with, considering that it took me about 40 tries to get into the second phase, combined into one beautiful symphony of easy-to-read telegraphs with after-trail attacks and hard-hitting fury attacks that you've never encountered before. Basically, the puppet brings the moveset and the carcass brings the after-trail attacks. This is truly a magnificent feat from a studio that has never tried this type of game before. Round 8 Studios cooked with this game, and much as I hate to admit it, this was the moment I started noticing it. I mean, yeah, sure, the game was already good enough, but I could never, for the life of me, I could never imagine that they could reuse a boss so well. The second fight is way more watered down. The area is filled with all three types of enemies, carcasses, puppets, and mixed. Also, you've already encountered the rematch against the Scrapped Watchman, So this rematch against the Parade Master feels more like them trying to fill in the void because they run out of money, or, even worse, ideas. The last areas are the best in my opinion. This is where the 10 gets turned into 11 on the dial and shit starts to actually feel like playing through a musical piece written by Beethoven or something. As I already said, these areas are where most of the funding and time went to. I mean, at least I think. You can see it from the first moment you arrive at the beach and you see this huge ominous tower in the distance that this place is about to be amazing. Unfortunately, this section is started off by a huge problem with the game. Boss runbacks. Every Souls-like has them, but... Okay, let me explain. You see, this area before the tower is guarded by the Door Guardian. Yeesh, a lot of thought went into that name, huh? This is, for lack of a better word, a gimmick boss. You need to parry enough times in order to stun the Guardian, and then critical attack him to deal half his HP bar in one hit. Do this again and the guy dies. This guy is... he's absolute trash. I can't believe that the same team that made all the previous and next bosses also made this one. This guy deals too much damage. Instantly procs shock whenever he hits you. By the way, shock tanks your stamina recovery speed. And has one of the worst runbacks known to man. I'm talking Martyr Logarius type of bad. This is unprecedented. Seriously, it was so annoying, especially because I couldn't figure out the fucking timings on this guy. So I died a lot, and there wasn't a stargazer outside of the boss room. I had to go through the whole fucking beach again, and then through the tower with these fucking scorpion things and ballistas and cannons shooting at me. It was just a pure nightmare. Thank God this problem is not repeated. That's the only problem I have with this area. That's the 10-minute section I mentioned at the start of the video, by the way. Okay, I think it's time to streamline this. After the Trash Guardian, you face off against Laxasia the Complete, also known as the boss that almost made me quit this game. She's fast, strong, and unforgiving. Ironically, everything I was searching for in this game, and even more ironically, everything that the Door Guardian was. For some reason, the Door Guardian feels dogshit and Laxasia feels amazing. So amazing, in fact, that I was so infatuated by her that I named my cat after her. I actually call my cat Laxasia. Please don't hate on me, okay? It's just that this boss is amazing. It's one of my favorite fights of all time. But still, her second phase feels a bit too tough, especially considering that the next boss, Simon Manus, who is also the last boss of the game, is considerably easier. This is also where I started to truly understand all the complaints about the parry timings. I'm okay with them as they are, but honestly I could live with them being just a frame or two more. Or maybe you find a ring that extends the timing of the parries, I don't know. Again, I'm fine with it staying as it is, but Laxasia proved to me that the timing can sometimes feel a little too strict. She also takes a cake for being the only boss that has an unbreakable weapon in the first phase, because if you do break it, she just transitions to the second phase immediately. In my opinion, it would be better if you could make the second phase easier by breaking her weapon, so that you don't have to die all the time, but you can't have everything in this life, okay, whatever. I briefly talked about Manus earlier. There's not much to say. I said that he's an easy boss, and he is. Brazenly so. For the last boss of the game, I find it hard to believe that they couldn't just make him a bit stronger. I also don't really like his design, and I hate his pathetic attempt at becoming Elden Beast 2.0. I mean, we already have enough final bosses that are dogshit. I mean, look at Elden Beast and Radahn. But oh my god, this guy. The only reason this guy is annoying is the second phase, okay? The cutscene is mwah, fucking amazing. And the soundtrack and everything is amazing. After the cutscene, however, you get the moveset of the first phase with an added moveset that's new to you, that's added in the second phase. That makes the fight dogshit because the first phase's moves that get carried over are not good ones. They are him jumping the fuck around. They are him wasting my fucking time. All the moves are him just jumping from one end of the arena to the other, shooting lasers that, by the way, if they hit you, they deal the worst type of status effect in these fucking games. Instant death. There's no way to sugarcoat this shit. It's instant death. and every laser, every orb, whatever the fuck these are called, feels like 20 to 25% of your status bar. So if you get hit 4 or 5 or 6 times, even if you have a billion HP, you instantly die. That's all I have to say for Manus. I'm not really gonna talk about him because he isn't that important to me. I didn't like him, but who cares? He isn't the actual final fight. But whatever. We made it. The last boss of the game. The actual last boss of the game. Before I move on, I'm gonna say this for the last time, even though it's pretty late now. If you haven't played this game, this will be your final spoiler warning to turn back. If you like what you've heard so far, please shut the fuck up, close the video, go and buy the game, play it, go through 2 or maybe all of the endings, and then come back to watch my opinion. You will not regret it. I promise you. Let's begin. The final boss of the game is called the Nameless Puppet, also known as the best fight in the entire game, and one of the best fights in all of Souls-likes. The Nameless Puppet, much like the Nameless King in DS3 or Malenia in Elden Ring, pushes the limits of the combat system to their extreme. I personally don't think that you could push them any further without making the mistake Shadow of the Erdtree did, and artificially making the game harder in order to please 10 hardcore elitist fucking fans that couldn't bear Margit being too easy, or that couldn't bear Malenia being too slow. Oh, fuck, went on a bit of a rant there, huh? Yeah, well, I have problems with Shadow of the Erdtree, okay? Just you wait. When I release this fucking video, I'm gonna bury this DLC so far. Anyway, the Nameless Puppet is perfection incarnate. I actually didn't like the fight when I first fought this guy. The first phase was always amazing, but the second one had one glaring problem. You see, there's this rush attack that you can't normally block. You need to parry it. But I played the game not long after its release, so there was no telegraph, I guess. There was no indication that this move was about to launch. So I was always just hit with either having to respond to a 5 frame dash, or just running around him so that he misses me, like I'm Xbox 360ing around Malenia while she does waterfall. I'm speaking way too much about Elden Ring. Fuck my life, Shadows. Focus, this is a Lies of P critique. Okay, yeah, they fixed that, however. When I went for my second playthrough, actually my New Game Plus playthrough, I noticed that they fixed that. So, no problem with this fight anymore. It's agile, it's hard hitting with both fast and delayed telegraphs, normal and fury attacks, and a plethora of moves to look cool doing. Truly a magnificent boss to end such an amazing game. For my conclusion, I'm going to say this again. This game is amazing. It has systems that synergize well, and even though it takes some ideas from some of Fromsoft's games, it doesn't outright plagiarize any. No matter how negative I was about it, and I know that I wasn't, this game has managed to solidify its place as one of my favorite games ever made, and my favorite Souls-like game ever made, with Bloodborne coming in at a very close second place. Thank you for taking this joyride with me, even though I was extremely late. Fuck that, I don't have a schedule, whatever. Please do expect the Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree critique in the coming months, and when I say coming months, I mean by 2029 I will have released it. Elden Ring 3 will have come out by then, but I don't give a fuck, I'm releasing the critique. I've decided to release them, by the way, in a joint video so that it's easier for me to express my thoughts and actually go back on stuff I've said, and easier for you to watch in one sitting, because who wants to wait for one critique just to watch the next part? It's ludicrous. I'm just gonna release one video, it's gonna be like 2, 3, maybe 4 hours long, and that's gonna be it. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. If this critique has managed to convince you to buy this game, please do that. You're gonna be doing me a favor, but fuck me, you're gonna be doing yourself a favor, because this game, as I've already said a billion times, is fucking amazing. Have a good night, have a good rest of your night, because I'm recording this at 2:23 AM, and I'll see you later.